Chairwoman Marin and members of the Assembly Budget Committee. My name is Donna Icovino. My son Michael is diagnosed with autism and bipolar disorder. When Michael was 18 years old, he experienced a severe behavioral crisis at his group home in South Jersey. Emergency services were dispatched, and he was transported by ambulance to a local hospital ER where he was heavily medicated and placed in mechanical restraints. Hours later, he was transferred to the hospital's crisis screening center, where a clinician immediately informed me that they were unequipped to serve my son because of his developmental disability diagnosis. Following countless calls that day, I concluded that there was nothing available for Michael in terms of receiving the appropriate behavioral assessment and stabilization treatment he required. I requested that the hospital discharge my son so that I could take him home. My request was denied, and against my wishes, as his mother and legal guardian, Michael was transferred to Ancora Psychiatric Hospital. I adamantly appealed to Ancora's administrative personnel on Birch Ward, and after a few days, Michael was discharged. In the end, they openly confirmed what I had known. That commitment to a state psychiatric hospital was an absolutely inappropriate placement to address Michael's treatment needs. The experience I just described occurred 15 years ago this month, and still there is no treatment available in the state for adults with comorbid severe behavior disorder, often referred to as dual diagnosis. At the time, there were approximately 120 individuals with severe behavior disorder literally shut away in state psychiatric hospitals throughout the state, languishing, regressing, and becoming institutionalized. I never lose sight of the fact that this is an extremely sad commentary on our society, removing innocent and struggling members of our community, rather than working to identify ways to better serve them, is unquestionably inhumane. 12 years ago, I proposed the convening of the Department of Human Services Dual Diagnosis Task Force and had the privilege of serving as co-chair. And still, there is no treatment available in the state for adults with severe behavior disorder. Subsequently, I participated on countless advisory committees and work groups examining the service delivery issues faced by adults who engage in life-threatening, challenging behaviors such as self-injury, aggression, pica, property destruction, and elopement. When these behaviors are intense and frequent, they can significantly impair a person's functioning and place their lives and the lives around them at great risk. And still, there is no treatment available in the state for adults with severe behavior disorder. However, it appears that the long-standing neglect for one of the state's most vulnerable population of individuals is about to end due to the solution-focused leadership of Governor Murphy. When the governor announced dedicated funding in the fiscal year 20 budget for affected individuals, their families knew they were finally being heard. Clearly, the Murphy administration believes in investing in accredited best practice treatment options, which will save lives and improve the overall quality of life for individuals who will have suffered far too long.
Ms. Icovino, thank you very much. We do have your testimony here.
I do. I just want to quickly thank, of course, the governor. I would like to thank Chairwoman Downey for putting together or placing us on the agenda of the March 11th hearing. I also want to sincerely thank Paul Aronson, the ombudsman, who's been working closely with us. And I also just want to highlight that there is Paul Aronson in his report highlighted a system of care plan for this population, which Dr. Cyndy Hayes and myself developed. We will be presenting that plan to Commissioner Johnson and Deputy Commissioner Edelman next week.
Thank you, Ms.
I just
Icovino.
ask that this committee support the $9.5 million in the budget. We really need your insightful leadership so that we're finally poised to create effective treatment services for this population.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Icovino.
very
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you. Cyndy Hayes. After Ms. Hayes, Melanie McGackin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Madam Chair and the committee for the time today. My name is Dr. Cyndy Hayes, and I'm testifying as a parent advocate. My son Brandon is 28 years old and has a severe behavior disorder. Shortly after my son's 18th birthday, his moderate behaviors escalated to a full-blown, life-threatening crisis. His self-injury resulted in wounds all over his body, and he refused to eat. He wore a hockey helmet and a face guard and body protection. One night, he started biting his tongue so severely that I was concerned he would bite his tongue off. We traveled by ambulance to the Princeton Medical Center, where he stayed for 3.5 months in 4-point restraints. I stayed in a chair next to him, holding gauze in his mouth so he wouldn't bite his tongue off. They were well-intentioned, but unfortunately they did not have the skills to address his needs. He is 6 feet tall. His weight reduced to 104 pounds. He contracted MRSA, and his self-injury continued to escalate. The doctors told me we almost lost him. We finally received word that he had a bed at Kennedy Krieger Neuro Behavioral Unit, a world-renowned center for individuals with severe behavior disorders. We traveled by ambulance to Baltimore. When we arrived, unfortunately, we were informed that that bed was no longer available. We then checked into a Baltimore psychiatric unit where he was given increased medication. He began to drool and tremor, yet his self-injury continued. We finally realized that the bed at Krieger was not going to open and we needed to do something. So my son was sent back again to New Jersey to the Hunterdon Developmental Center, and then a series of homes where he experienced neglect and abuse. He had 9 operations on his ears and sustained a lesion on his brain. I removed Brandon from his last provider in 2017 and immediately took him to the hospital. Over the last 2 years, I have learned that Brandon had multiple broken bones in his hands, his nose, and his diagnosis now included PTSD. And by the way, just to show you how this impacts families, the doctor diagnosed me also with PTSD at that point. I'm here today to propose a system of care for adults with severe behavior disorders. The disorders we are describing are very complex and are often described as treatment resistant. They require a system of care that addresses their many medical, behavioral, and mental health issues. Currently, when a crisis occurs, 911 is called, but unfortunately, staff does not have the skills. And as a result, the situation escalates. They are taken to the hospital where it escalates further. They are medicated. They are released back into the same home that they came from, the same group home or residential setting, where there is no one trained to support them. There is no program, and they're move again into crisis, and then the cycle continues. It's just a revolving door that happens. In our, as Donna mentioned, she and I have worked on developing a system of care that intervenes in the crisis with a mobile response unit, including medical, behavioral staff who have the skills to stabilize the individual and determine the next steps. Among the possibilities are additional residential support, a short stay in a behavioral setting, or possibly an intense inpatient intervention. The process heavily relies on medical professionals and board-certified behavior analysts. Our proposal includes a replication of the Kennedy Krieger.
I'm sorry. Thank you. We do have your testimony here, and you gave us a full packet with the proposals that you and I know Donna just spoke about. So we really appreciate, and most of all, I'd just like to thank you for sharing a picture of Brandon with us.
Yeah, we just don't want any more Brandons out there.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you very much for sharing your story, your ideas, and all of your work. Thank you. Can I please have Melanie McGackin? After Melanie, Kenyon Cummings.
Good afternoon. My name is Melanie McGackin. I am an advocate and a parent to a 20-year-old young man diagnosed with autism OCD and who has had severe challenging behaviors. As a parent, I want nothing more but to sit here and tell you all the wonderful qualities about my son. Instead, I sit in front of you sharing our family's most personal challenges. Until recently, my family never spoke of the crisis we experienced behind the walls of our home. We never had to. Our injuries and scars told our story for us. If you are forced to live in crisis over time, it becomes your norm. I say forced because there is no current system of care established in New Jersey to address a full scope of needs for adults with comorbid diagnosis who also exhibit severely challenging behaviors. My son's aggression was like anything you may imagine. He would shatter TVs when being denied access to preferred items, bite through my skin in a rage, and punch his fist through windows over the anxiety of having to go to school. The property damage caused a tremendous amount of stress and concern over the years within our house, but the bodily harm sustained caused panic. Over the years of cycling through different support agencies, inappropriate hospitalizations, and exhausting every option for in-home supports, it became painfully obvious that my son needed more intensive services that would have to be received outside of our family's home. Unfortunately, there was no inpatient severe behavior unit offering an interdisciplinary approach to treatment here in New Jersey for my son, so we were forced to look out of state for treatment options. After much research and professional guidance, we applied for admission to the Krieger's Neuro Behavior Unit in Baltimore, Maryland, an inpatient unit dedicated to the assessment and treatment of young adults with severe and treatment-resistant behavior disorders and developmental disabilities. We felt that as though this was our only option to allow my son and family the possibility of having a healthier life together. It took over a year for my son to receive placement on Kennedy Krieger's unit. A year in crisis is a long, unhealthy amount of time for a family to wait. When my son was admitted into Kennedy Krieger, almost a third of the patients were from New Jersey. Think about that. A third of the beds of an inpatient unit out in Maryland were occupied by the residents of our state. Those statistics tell a dark story. In September of 2018, after 8.5 months of intensive treatment, my son was discharged from Kennedy Krieger, showing great improvement with the help of a great support team. He transitioned back to New Jersey into a residential placement. My family now knows a life full of hope and possibilities. My son is happier, healthier, lives a quality of life that he hasn't experienced in far too many years. My son now enjoys going to school, job sampling, spending time in his community, and most importantly, spending time with his family. We do not know what the future holds for my son, but we celebrate the quality of life that he has today. For too long, stigma shamed and muted my family's voice. After seeing how the correct treatment has advanced my son, I feel a responsibility to share our family's story in hopes that it will make a difference for another parent's son or daughter. For the sake of the individuals who require this level of support in their family, a severe behavior unit in New Jersey is absolutely needed. I would like to applaud Governor Murphy, Mr. Paul Aronson, and Chairwoman Downey for their support to address the needs of adults with dual diagnosis and severe behavior challenges. And please understand that my family not only supports, we will help advocate with Ms. Donna Icovino and Dr. Cyndy Hayes in order to pursue the plan that they have to allow individuals with a dual diagnosis and severe challenging behaviors a healthier life. Thank you.
Ms. Gackin. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you.